our Season 3 Invitational for the Eternal Tournament Series. This will be round 3 of Winner's Bracket. And once again, I am joined by... Oh, sorry guys, we had a little bit of a technical problem there. But yeah, once again, I am joined by my co-caster, LocoPojo.
Hello, hello.
And with a few words about our awesome sponsors here, aReNGee Eternal, I'll toss it to LocoPojo.
Well, welcome, guys. We are here today because of aReNGee Eternal, aReNGeeeternal.com. And if you want to come check out our site, it's pretty cool. It's got daily articles up every day. We have our Scion School list, of course, teaching the basics of Eternal. You can check out aReNGee's Building Better series and on deep dives into how to build decks better. There are lots of different new articles up and lots of different ways that we sort of talk about this card game. And of course, you can use the site to sign up for the Eternal Tournament series, check out our stock lists and our tier lists, and basically just look around and learn a lot about the game. aReNGee Eternal is just an amazing site for Eternal strategy. And if you want to support the stream and you just want to check us out, we're over there.
Yeah, definitely. It's an awesome resource. I'd encourage anyone who just getting into the game or just trying to get more competitive, better understanding of things. Definitely recommend checking out what we have over at aReNGee Eternal. So, for our matchup for this round, we have Hythar on Big Combre versus Catalyst, also on Big Combre. I think that this is largely going to be a mirror. I'm trying to peruse the deck list. I don't see much of a difference between the two.
Yeah, it can be a pretty solid matchup for basically lots of big mid-rangey things hitting each other. This tends to involve a lot of interaction between the two players. Ordering becomes very, very important. There's a lot of really interesting decisions that have to be made regarding whether you're protecting your health this turn or whether you're trying to push for card advantage. It tends to be a slower matchup, but it also tends to be one of the more engaging ones. And of course, both of these decks have Seraph in them and can end with some pretty fun and silly pulls off of those cards.
Yeah, and we see some of the small differences in the deck list. Hythar only has 3 Mystic Ascendant, and in its place has Protects. Catalyst has a couple more Scorpion Wasps without Protects. So the decks are very similar. This is largely going to be a mirror match. There isn't a huge amount of difference, but the Protect actually on the side of Hythar, if anything's going to make a difference between these two decks, that is going to be relevant because there are things like Seraph and Mystic Ascendant that are disproportionately more powerful than other cards in this matchup.
Yep. Yeah, you have an interesting decision between Ascendant and Parliament here, and it's kind of funny because one person is running 3 Ascendants and 4 Parliaments, and the other is running 4 Ascendants and 3 Parliaments. So you have either the people who go wide on the board and press a little bit more aggressively, or you have the card draw focused version with the significant advantage play. But we're getting into the game now.
Yeah, and both players, I guess, have 3 drops. We will see Hythar play the Initiate instead of the Find the Ways, just to get that guy out there. Catalyst has some 3 drops, but largely the early turns of the game aren't going to matter a lot. It's generally just people developing their mana, which Hythar is a better situation to do. So we could see a situation where later in the game, Catalyst does not have enough power to start enacting his endgame with his Mystic Ascendant, and Hythar will not.
Yeah, every point of damage here does count. There's certainly a point at which each of these players is going to be beating on each other with after harsh rules, and if you can actually get enough of a push through, you can secure lethal before the other player manages to get their card advantage online, like we saw last time with David's deck. But in this case, it looks like both players are playing a pretty slow plan, so they'll end up pretty even going into the late game.
Yeah, the early turns right now aren't the most important thing. It's unlikely someone's going to get so far ahead in board where they can substantively pressure their opponent. What matters is setting up the power for later to your cards that do matter can be cast and matter more. And right now, Catalyst is on his last power with 2 Mystic Ascendant in hand. So if he doesn't draw power for the next couple turns he didn't there, he could just get stuck on 4, and Hythar gets up to the Seraph and other bigger things.
Yeah, we have Combre Healer here as sort of a way to defend yourself. There's not many great options for Catalyst here. He can play the Parliament early, which will allow him to get a 4/4 flyer down and actually start pressuring for damage. From here, it's just a matter of which player can actually start pushing across with mid-range units first.
Yeah, I'm unsure that either player is going to really be able to get profitable attacks anytime soon. They need to get up to these Mystic Ascendants. The Catalyst does draw power there, so that is forward progress, but they still need 2 more to turn these Mystic Ascendants. The rest of their hand is just kind of like 2/5, like just stuff that can't attack. So it's interesting because you have the opposite problem on the side of High there, where he has all this power and nothing to do with it.
Yep. Eventually, that will lead to Seraph being an issue, but with the Desert Marshal in hand for Catalyst, I think Catalyst is currently favored to win. There's a lot of pressure in Catalyst's hand that can be played out. The Combray Healers, the Scorpion Wasps. You have to be a little bit careful about Harsh Rule here, but overall, he's just got a lot more to put out and deal damage with, whereas High there is sort of looking at all of his low-end units. He's being forced to play silences that he'd probably rather not be playing. A bit trickier for him to do any damage back.
Yeah, this bird, the owl from Parliament, will like continue to get in unless High there elects to marshal it and then double block with the 3/3 and the 3/4, which is certainly possible. But they're just going to take it. And now Catalyst can play a 2/5, which doesn't really impact the board, or play Ironthorn naked, which has its own risks. But if they draw power, then they get to start like getting into a spot where they can castle stuff.
Yeah, you see these silences come out on turns 5 and 6. Oftentimes people will save the silence of Seraph until turn 7 or so. I think this is actually like a much better option because not only does it develop the board, but it also means that if some other large threat comes down, you have a chance to deal with that and don't have to deal with both that and Seraph at the same time. So an interesting line of play from both Catalyst and High there, getting those silences out early and just continuing to develop the board. Neither player has Harsh Rule, so this is getting into like a real knockdown drag out.
Yeah, and it's unclear like who Harsh Rule benefits more right now. I guess the answer would be Catalyst, only because we can see hands that High there is on air. But both players' boards are pretty comparable at this current moment.
High there not attacking in. He can smell that Scorpion Wasp a mile away. Ironthorn is a possibility for Catalyst at this point. Of course, there's no power in his hand, so it's not possible for him to get up to the 6 or 7 that he needs.
And there is he has like 3 different ways to prevent this Ironthorn from getting value, but he's okay with that because as we see, he has the second one in hand. The second Ironthorn is generally not going to do a lot. So just throwing the first one out to take whatever would deal with the second one will generally pave the way. Also, more importantly, the Ironthorn just ate a Vanquish that would really wants to hit Mystic Ascendant. So if these Mystic Ascendants go unchecked, that's going to be a big problem for Hylar.
Catalyst is still capable of playing a threat every turn. High there's only advantage is that he's managed to develop a little bit stronger of a board, so he's actually going to pressure Catalyst for real damage now. And that 5 damage from the Sandstorm Titan really counts. Every hit there is just one step closer to lethal. You only need, a good 5 hits before you can get through there, and it's definitely looking like overall, I think Catalyst is in a much better position just because of all of that gas in his hand.
Yeah, especially now that he drew the power, he can play Ironthorn, play the power, get up to 7 mana, and now his mana is no longer bottlenecked. And like the Hylar's advantage before was if he drew some top end card like Parliament or Mystic Ascendant or Seraph, he could immediately activate it because he had so much power. Now he no longer has an advantage over Catalyst. Catalyst can cast all of his stuff too, and Catalyst actually has stuff to cast.
And Ironthorn's not such a scary card until you're closer to 15, but it's very scary if your opponent plays a Mystic Ascendant. So High there's got to deal with the Ironthorn, and then he's got to deal with the Ascendant, and then he's got to deal with another Ascendant. And it's pretty unlikely that he's going to get all 3 in succession without missing a beat.
He does have the first 2 dealt with. We see the Valkyrie coming down on the Ironthorn, and this Desert Marshal will deal with the Mystic Ascendant. So we just need something for the second Mystic Ascendant, and his board should be clogged enough to prevent any attacks, and then he just needs to find some business of his own.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of aggression here. Mystic Ascendant is going to be a 6/6, which means that it will trade with at least 1 unit on either side of the board, and that unit is probably going to be Sandstorm Titan, which enables cards like Ironthorn to start attacking in. Once you get rid of that 5/6, you can start pushing in with your 4/4s and your 5/5s and just provoking even trades because you have the card.
The House of Cards starts to come down. And we do see him Desert Marshal, which does answer the other Mystic Ascendant, but like you said, the actual just 6/6s and 5/5s are going to start to matter.
Yep. If Catalyst chooses to be aggressive here, he has a pretty good chance of pushing through for lethal. Great Parliaments and Mystic Ascendants are both like extremely good cards here. Catalyst choosing to sit on his heels and just sort of see how this plays out.
We see either play that power because he doesn't want to play the Parliament for 2 owls. He wants a 3rd owl. He's only 1 power away. It seems like a reasonable thing to do. Adding Parliament to the board right now doesn't do anything. Your opponent can't attack. You can't attack with the Parliament. So playing it early doesn't really accomplish a whole lot. Probably want to just, if you can, try and save it until either you draw Harsh Rule or your opponent Harsh Rules. That's like what Hyther would likely want to happen. Whether or not that can happen is a different issue.
Yeah, having 3 Mystic Ascendants in hand just means that he's going to have an overwhelming amount of card advantage available. From here, it's really hard to say what the path to victory is. Like, you have all of these big units. If you can actually just overwhelm your opponent, that's probably the key word there. But if you don't get to your Harsh Rules, there's always the problem of, can you overdevelop too much into Harsh Rule at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think both players are pretty heavily committed to Harsh Rule. I'm really not sure who it benefits more. The answer would be Catalyst, just because he has a better hand. But as far as like the onboard presence goes, both players like have pretty much the same. I guess you could say Catalyst is slightly further ahead. But again, like this attack is like whatever. He traded a 3/3 for a 6/6. It's not the best. So I still think this game has a while to go. I don't think either player is particularly close to winning the game.
Yeah, Catalyst has definitely like sort of the overall long-term advantage. That could change if Hythar just sort of like rips 3 Mystic Ascendants in a row. But at the moment, there's not a lot to be said for his current position. He's just has that 1/5/6 for defense. The 6/6s will be pushing in and basically just knocking a Valkyrie Enforcer off the board each turn. So he needs more large units to push in with at least.
Yeah, like he still doesn't have great attacks here. Like if the 6/6 comes in, it'll just trade with Valkyrie Enforcer, like you said. If he doesn't attack, that gives Hythar more time to draw out of it. And the more turns that go by, the more likely that Hythar's hand equals the quality of Catalyst's hand, because he just needs to like draw into more things. Yeah, like this one of the players needs to draw a Harsh Rule or like get up to an Ironthorn Ultimate or something, because as things currently stand, I don't know how else they break this board.
Catalyst should be playing his Ascendants every turn. I think it's just incorrect to sit still and wait. Even if there is silences up ahead, you want to be playing out every unit that you can and just pushing the board as much as possible.
Actually, I think that we're going to see this Valkyrie silence the Sandstorm Titan, and then for Callus to start attacking in the air, which I do like, and I think he could have been doing earlier. I actually forget if he had the Valkyrie previously or not. But yeah, that is certainly a path that puts a lot of pressure under Hythar to do something. So he's going to need to act eventually. Catalyst can even play the other Parliament if he wants to get super aggressive.
Yep, you can certainly end up with a lot of aggressive flyers here and take this battle to the skies. Catalyst has his own Sandstorm Titan that he can play if he loses this battle. Like if Hythar just ends up playing Great Parliament for 3 owls, his own Sandstorm Titan can just revert the board back to that sort of stalled out state, and then he can go back to the Mystic Ascendant plan. So this is an interesting line.
Yeah, you see Hythar debating whether or not he wants to play the Mystic Ascendant or the Parliament. He can only play one of the two this turn. He does opt for Parliament. Now that the sky is a relevant place to fight the fight, he wants to make it so he's ahead there, or at least going to be even. So again, the board is once again stalled out, and both players don't have profitable attacks. But there's a Harsh Rule. That might change some things.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty good investment here. Catalyst can just go all in and push a little bit of damage. Probably won't end up with any damage just because there's an even number of blockers on the board. But if there aren't any profitable attacks, or if there aren't enough profitable blocks for Hythar, then he could mess up and in some way force Catalyst to like keep the board that he's got, but at an advantage.
Yeah, like Catalyst doesn't need to pull the trigger on Harsh Rule. He's just going to attack, see what happens, and then decide whether or not he wants to. But this is going to be interesting for Catalyst, because Catalyst is going to Harsh Rule and then either play Sandstorm Titan or Parliament. I would assume Titan, because Parliament's only 1 power away from having the 3rd owl, although he could play Parliament. And then if he plays Sandstorm Titan, Hythar just gets to go back Mystic Ascendant power, and then the Sandstorm Titan can't attack, and then Hythar's like pretty close to even.
Yeah, this gut check clearly doesn't work. Not a single point of damage through. Has to play the harsh rule now. No stand together, so at least nothing bad happens there. But yeah, Sandstorm Titan coming down, and we'll see where the game progresses from here.
Yeah, you'll probably see Mystic Ascendant. You don't want to 1-for-1 the harsh rule. You need that for like parliaments or something more important, especially when the Mystic Ascendant already checks the Titan. And yeah, you just pass back your high there. The Desert Marshal's a really good draw on the part of Catalyst, because if Hythar was able to get this going for a couple turns, have it unchecked, that's how he claws back into the game. But now Catalyst's small advantage is going to be retained, and looking not great for Hythar.
Yeah, so we have the Mystic Ascendant potentially getting much, much bigger. Hythar does not have an answer for it apart from Harsh Rule, but probably the Harsh Rule will be played here.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate for Hythar because he is pressed into playing the harsh rule here. We know the Catalyst has a lot more gas to follow up, but Hythar just pretty much doesn't have a choice. You can't let this Mystic Ascendant keep going off. He's going to be able to attack next turn because it'll be an 8/8. So yeah, he has to get rid of it now. And this Parliament is going to probably come down on the back end and be very bad for Hythar. He's going to need another harsh rule.
Yep, if Catalyst doesn't draw his 12th power, the Parliament's only going to generate 2 owls, which isn't amazing. Catalyst might try to hold on to it. I think that it's correct to play it here, just pressure out as much as possible.
It's a 2-turn clock either way with the 2 owls or 3 owls, so I think it would have been fine to play it. Hythar did have the Comber Healer and now the Vanquish to break that up, but the way Catalyst plays it is better, a little bit less aggressive, more insulation from interaction, so gets paid off for it. Now he does draw the power, gets to play the 3rd owl.
3 owls is better than 2. Yeah, it's definitely a pretty solid decision here. Since both players have been like very, very light on their harsh rules, there's always a chance of a really bad top deck. But yeah, it's going to be pretty tricky to see what happens. Another Mystic Ascendant coming down. Cards replacing itself, of course, every time.
That's a really good turn, because now Catalyst is in the position where he has to decide whether or not he kills the Sandstorm Titan, allowing his flyers to attack, or kill the Mystic Ascendant, and then maybe Hythar draws more stuff. I'm pretty sure you just kill the Titan and say, okay, draw another Titan or something. But Hythar's going to keep this Mystic Ascendant, and he'll get 2 draws at something to deal with this Parliament next turn.
Yeah, I think Vanquish on the Sandstorm Titan is correct, just for the amount of damage that it deals. There's always the risk that like the last card in his hand is a Desert Marshal, and you just don't have enough pressure to outdo the Mystic Ascendant. If anything happens here that basically forces Catalyst out of the game, in particular a harsh rule, that could be pretty bad for him. But with Hythar so low,
yeah, Parliament like stabilizes the board, and now Hythar is going to have a Mystic Ascendant. Also draws the Sandstorm Titan for value. So yeah, like Hythar is now ahead. Hythar is no longer behind. He ripped the Parliament when he needed to rip the Parliament, and he's ahead.
It's not a good way to come back here. Hythar just had like enough power to get into that 12-12 situation.
The attack into the Wasp is now he's still ahead, but now he doesn't have the active Mystic Ascendant, so he can still flood from this point. Before with the Mystic Ascendant, that couldn't really be a thing.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised he didn't attack with Combre Healer on that push, but the Parliament is basically the only decision to make here.
Yeah, I think that attack was a little bit too aggressive from Hythar. You were ahead, but only because of the Mystic Ascendant, and you don't want to give your opponent another way to kill it with Wasp. If you win the game, it's not going to be through that incremental damage. It's going to be through you have stabilized, and then you could like alpha for like 20 with the owls or whatever.
Hythar,
so I think it was needlessly risky.
Hythar appears to be seriously considering playing a Sandstorm Titan and just blocking for a turn, going to 1, and just waiting for that 16 for 4 owls. But wisely decides against it. I think it would have worked out just fine, but
it's interesting. Like when you're behind, you do want to make spots like that, but like the game's pretty even now. Like, and this is why that attack with the Mystic Ascendant, because Hythar would be in such a good spot if that Mystic Ascendant was still around. Catalyst did draw the harsh roll, so he would be able to get things back to neutral. But if he didn't draw that harsh roll, Hythar's top decks are just so good.
It's been a pretty hilarious mirror. You don't usually see it play out quite this stall-tastic.
It's so hard for both players to kill one another. It's so hard.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of excess damage available. It's going to be really interesting to see what sort of sideboards matter here, because anything that can break the stall or can like really just like pressure through could be really relevant in this matchup. like stand together makes this a much faster game because whoever plays the harsh rule first is usually the one who loses.
Well, there's the best card High there can draw, or at least one of them in Mystic Ascendant. You do see the Catalyst has the answer in harsh rule, but 1/4 harsh rule isn't the best spot. I mean, he probably has to pull the trigger, but you don't want to.
Catalyst has a stand together, which is nice. Beyond that, there's not. And if he harsh rules here, he's gonna be in a position where both of them are just a draw go. But he doesn't know that. He could basically be facing down a much more worrisome threat.
Yeah, I think paying 8 life and a card to wait a turn on harsh rule to like see if they play something else is just way too much of a cost. And Iron Thorn's pretty good, and I guess you do play it. Like, they just used a bunch of their removal. You just want the 5/5 in play. And anything they play, like, you already have the ultimate online. So this Iron Thorn is pretty good.
Yeah, like this card seems pretty solid.
There's
no unit-based answer to it, although Stand Together does exist. And if you've got Seraph as well, then you're certainly loading the board in a way that another harsh rule is the only answer for Catalyst.
Yeah, you definitely play Seraph. It's likely to hit something that is lethal.
Also,
one short.
We've seen a lot of harsh rules so far. I think there's been at least 2 played on Catalyst side, maybe 3. With this particular setup, it's going to be pretty difficult for Catalyst to get into the answer that he needs, which is just harsh rule at this point.
Yeah, Great Parliament is also reasonable, but now I guess I had the ultimate on the Iron Thorn. Never mind, that doesn't work. So yeah, it's harsh rule. He's drawing like one of them. Although now the Wasp takes down this Iron Thorn, Parliament's back on the table.
Yep, it's quite possible that being able to play that Parliament out would be really, really good for him. But it looks like Catalyst finally loses the battle of attrition. Just a few too many rips off of the top of Hythar's deck at this point, and yeah, all of that early power that Hythar draw is finally coming into play.
Yeah, and you saw that, like, for the most of that game, Catalyst was ahead. Like, Catalyst had a handful of business. He was ahead on board for a bit, but it's really just about who can leverage those cards at the end of the game. Like, and Hythar had all the silences for the Mystic Ascendants. But Hythar actually, one of the more important things was he had so much power that his Great Parliaments were huge. He was able to cast everything he played, where Catalyst was kind of like floundered for like a large portion in the mid game. So it's really hard to be aggressive enough where you can actually break through the defenses your opponent is presenting in this mirror match. So I think you just really want to build your deck in such a way post-board that you are equipped to both break board stalls and attrition your opponent out.
Yeah, we see some interesting sideboarding things going on here. Decays and the Passage of Eons are being considered on one side, while Hythar has just gone in on the Stand Togethers and Reality Wardens and a bunch of other stuff that'll just basically push through for that like sort of big, intense fight. I think it should be interesting to see which deck ends up doing better. I feel like Hythar's Dawnwalkers, the 2 of Dawnwalkers that are in his sideboard, should be extremely good in this matchup, just as one extra thing that has to be silenced to be dealt with.
Yeah, Steward of Prophecy I also like a lot. Xenon Obelisk, out of both players' sideboards, I like. That's a way to break the board stall. Your creatures can be bigger. You can get profitable attacks or prevent your opponent from attacking from a board you would otherwise be behind on. So yeah, those are both great. Another Parliament on the side of Catalyst is reasonable. Passage of the Eons, I actually don't think I hate. I think that's like kind of reasonable to bring in. Most of the creatures you want to silence, it kills Obelisk, but you know your opponent's bringing it in. Like,
yeah, I'm pretty tepid on it, just because there's usually not 2 creatures that you want to silence at the same time, or 2 units that you want to silence at the same time. And it's rare that there's going to be even one relic that you want to destroy. Xenon Obelisk is, of course, kind of an important card, but in some ways it doesn't really change the game as much as most of the other cards in this deck. So having 2 attachment destruction answers in Big Combre feels really strange to me. I'm curious if those will end up being dead cards in his hand.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to overload on that, especially when the only target is just the 2 Xenon Obelisk. I think Passage is like cute. I don't know if it's actually good. I think there's situations where it would be, and there's certainly situations where it wouldn't. But it's
yeah,
like, interesting.
There's definitely the potential that it's going to be exceptional. It could be, the big Voprex play, but I'm not sure if it'll be good in this particular matchup. I don't think there are any other attachments on Hythar's side.
Yeah, it's just the two Xenobelisks in both players' deck, I believe.
Xenon obelisks and 2 attachment answers, so Catalyst can at least immediately neutralize both of those obelisks, and he won't have overdone it. But
Yeah,
still, this is definitely a game where you often go down to last cards in hand, and if the last card in your hand is an attachment destruction, and your opponent didn't draw an attachment, that could be really bad for you.
yep. And we're gonna see Steward's like younger brother do some work here. Steward of Prophecy is gonna look at Catalyst's hand and make a 6-mana 4/4. So that's super powerful. Hitting one of the most important cards in the matchup and making it a 6-mana 4/4 with no text is huge game.
Yeah,
granted, the body's really small, doesn't rumble with this Titan, but he can fix that later.
Yeah, it's pretty good development. He is taking that damage, of course, which does matter, because if you get into any sort of like board stall situation, there might be like a turn or two where you'd rather just like be taking that damage. And with Sandstorm Titan hitting him over and over again, Hyder might be in some trouble.
It's certainly tempting there to play a Desert Marshal and double block. I mean, you get blown out by Stand Together, which we do see that Catalyst has, but you would really like to stop taking damage.
Ideal, I think. Catalyst has Stand Together to just sort of help him out a little bit here. And
this Titan might just like go coast to coast. Like normally Titan is kind of medium in the matchup, like it just bounces with other Titans or like can't attack into a clogged board. But the way things have currently played out, this Titan is not currently really answerable. I mean, either can double block it and the Stand Together doesn't protect it from that, but he may be apprehensive to do so.
Yeah, if he attacks with both units, he gets something out of it, but he might just spend the Stand Together for it, and that's not really necessarily what he wants to do. I think this double block happens regardless of how he attacks, so it's kind of interesting that he just chose to attack with just the Sandstorm Titan, but yeah, I think overall it works out pretty well for him.
Yep, and now we're again in a spot where both players don't really have a lot going on. It's really going to be who rips the first important thing, and Catalyst is in a bit better spot because he has a Stand Together for whatever threat he draws. He can protect it. Although Hythar has 3 answers, so he'll be able to punch through.
Yeah, 2 4/4s staring each other down. It's kind of a tough deal. Like you have basically like this extra amount of damage. Oh, Xenon Obelisk making it a 6/5. There you go. Problem resolved.
Yeah, he could Vanquish and like start attacking. We will see the Stand Together likely come down to protect the 4/4. Oh no, it doesn't. That's really interesting because not only does it protect it from the Vanquish, it also makes it so your 4/4 trades with the 6/5. Now you're just under a bunch of pressure, and if you don't draw a creature, you're in super bad shape.
Yeah, I feel like Catalyst is sort of waiting on like his Seraph or something like that, something that will actually win him the game to protect, and that's a risky play, but potentially the right one.
Yeah, it's certainly ambitious, and if he has like 3 or 4 turns to draw out of it, and he gets paid off big for drawing out of it if he does, but if he doesn't, he hasn't been, he's just gonna die to this Steward of the Past's younger brother. And actually, these 2 Desert Marshals is lethal? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, those obelisks did end up doing the job that they needed to. So there comes the damage, and both players stuffing their decks with relics actually created some more openings for them to push through.
Yeah, and we saw Obelisk be great on the side of Hythar because he had creatures, and it probably would have been good on the side of Catalyst if he drew creatures, which he didn't do. Catalyst only drew Sandstorm Titan and Mystic Ascendant for that game, so a little bit below average variance for him. But I'm actually not sure what he sided out. If he sided out creatures for the Xenon Obelisk, maybe then that's just how it goes.
Will actually hit the road on one of these players' decks, and that's actually something we were talking about earlier. That like maybe you just want to ditch the harsh rules since there's so much like stuff going on. You could just double down on your units, like create more units than you can possibly deal with, and like just protect them with Stand Together and try to push that damage while your opponent is setting up relics and doing more dirtily.
I don't know if I'm sold on 0 harsh rule in the mirror post board, but I'm pretty sure I don't want 4 either.
Like 1 or 2 is probably all you need, and in this case we have 3, and it ends up being just fine.
Yeah, so good show there by High. Gets to move. Oh, no, this is winner's bracket. So Catalyst will move on to loser's bracket, try to fight it out in there. Hythar will keep moving forward. And yeah, so those special mirror match actually took very long, so we do not have a backup match, it looks like.
Yep, good long control games, lots of fun, and we'll see you guys in winner's bracket round 2, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that is, what is this round? Loser's bracket round 3 is next. So we will go back to loser's bracket. and do that next. So we will see you guys very shortly. Come back with the next round for LocoPojo. I'm Truedawn. See you guys soon.
See you soon.